everyone. Good afternoon. Great to see so many of you here, and I know people are also kind of dialing in online as well. So my name is Amy French. I'm the head of Level 39, so where we are today. So we're the venue host of this wonderful Women in Crypto event, and we're really pleased to also be the host as we are home to 180 entrepreneurs at Level 39. So wanted to give you a very quick overview of what Level 39 is, if you don't know already. So we are a community of entrepreneurs within fintech, cybersecurity, blockchain, crypto, and many more as well. We've been going for about 8.5 years. We were initially launched by the Canary Wharf Group, so the property developer that built, owned, managed Canary Wharf, but also the most sustainable developer in the UK. What our role is very much to support entrepreneurs and businesses who start as one person and very much grow into hundreds in Canary Wharf. And obviously, very much delighted to host this incredible event this afternoon, especially as a community of founders, especially in tech. We understand the underrepresentation of women in the tech sector. So events and initiatives like this to spotlight the incredible work of women in tech is exactly what we're here for. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming. I hope you enjoy the afternoon. And I will hand over to Lottie from Wirex. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy, and welcome to the 2021 Women in Crypto campaign, and more importantly, welcome to our brand new event, Women in Crypto, Tech, Innovation and Digitisation. So after an incredible 2020 launch campaign, we're back for a second year after realising the incredible impact it had on the industry. This year at Wirex, we're very happy to be partnered with UKTN to bring this campaign and event to you and play a vital role in giving it a wider platform to the entire world. My name is Lottie Wells, and I will be hosting this event today and playing a very minor role between these 6 incredible ladies' presentations. I'm the Senior PR and Events Manager at Wirex and have been here for around 18 months now, and I'm very proud to have been involved in this campaign since the very beginning last year. It's an initiative that's close to mine and my female colleagues' hearts, as we want other women to understand the huge opportunities that there are within the crypto sector. So it shouldn't be a male-dominated space, and we want to give them a platform to understand this even more. So last year, we hosted the Rising Women in Crypto Power List. This encouraged nominations from women in the crypto sector that were all doing incredible things. And we had a very difficult judging process, and we narrowed that down to the final 10 and showcased them to the entire world. So don't worry, it's back for a second year, but I will go into more of that later. So where else better to showcase to the world what women are doing in the crypto space than to bring together 6 powerhouses to talk everything crypto, digitisation and blockchain during London Tech Week. We're hugely grateful to be hosting this here at Level 39, so welcome to everyone here in the audience and also our live streamers at home. We'll have 6 quick-fire, 10-minute presentations discussing payments, NFTs, DeFi, and the women's roles within this sector. So think of it like a TED Talk meets crypto. Whether you're new to the crypto space or a hardcore crypto fan, there will be something for everyone today, and we hope that you can learn something from their insights. So, without further ado, let me introduce the panelists. Firstly, we have Samantha Yap, CEO and founder of Yap Global. Marija Riba, Senior Product Manager at Wirex. Shefali Roy, board member at MakerDAO. Natasha Kundaiker, Head of Marketing at Terra Virtua. Margarita Mukhmadeeva, Head of Product UK and Western Europe at EconPay. And finally, Aruna Costa, VP of Customer Success at Elliptic. So each talk will follow on from one another, and we'll finish off by having a Q&A, some of which questions you have asked on our community forum already. But without further ado, I will start with Sam's presentation. So just a quick intro about her. Sam Yap is the founder and CEO of Yap Global, and she'll be doing our first presentation on shaping the DeFi narrative. Yap Global is a PR agency with a focus on helping meaningful blockchain, crypto, and DeFi teams tell their stories on a global stage. With her expertise and leadership, she's built Yap Global to be the link between the complicated, unknown crypto technology and the mainstream press. She's got vast experience working as a journalist in Jakarta, Melbourne, Kuala Lumpur, and Hong Kong, and it's a pleasure to welcome her to the stage.
Thank you so much, Lottie, and thank you so much for putting an amazing event together with an amazing lineup of speakers. So thank you guys for coming. I'm Samantha Yap. That was a really kind introduction, and I'm just going to quickly run through what I do and what PR can do to help shape the narrative and educate people about blockchain, crypto, and DeFi. So you've heard a little bit about me, but what YAP Global does is we see ourselves as the bridge between emerging technology companies and quality journalism, and we think it's really important to tell trustworthy stories about this space. I'm sure over the last year we've seen a lot of news about Bitcoin, about crypto, about the prices, and some might view them as highly speculative, but there's more to this industry and there's more to innovation in the space, and we see ourselves as the link to really bridge that gap. So a little bit about my team and about YAP Global as a PR firm. We're a global firm. We've got team members around the world. There's a few of us in the UK, 4 to 5 people, and we actually have a few of our team at the back there. There's George and Otto from my team. So we've got team members in the UK, Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, the US, and so we're kind of a globally distributed team, which is what a lot of our clients are. These are some of our clients. They range from the DeFi protocols like Maple Finance to the publicly listed companies like a crypto mining firm like Bitfarms. So that's who we work with, and these are the relationships that we work to build to help tell trustworthy stories about this space. So just want to give you a quick overview of just the narrative and where it's at over the last year. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that in late 2020, we saw Bitcoin reach all-time highs in terms of price. I think in November, the Bitcoin price was around maybe $15,000 per Bitcoin, and then it just exploded and hit 65,000 as an all-time high. So the reason, price is the least important thing about this space, but the reason why it's worth being aware of is it really does, the interest and the mainstream media interest of this space is pegged to the price of Bitcoin as well as Ethereum. I'm sure more of you have heard about Ethereum a bit more, and then lately you're starting to hear about other blockchains, and you may have heard of Solana, for example. So it's been interesting to see that in late 2020, you started to also see companies like Square and Tesla buying up Bitcoin in their treasuries, and that was really important to attract the attention of publications like the BBC, which is what our probably friends and parents who aren't in this space read. So that has been really interesting to see the attention that it's gotten due to the bull run. And what we are focused on really shaping is the DeFi narrative, and in the DeFi space, some of you may be aware of DeFi Summer that really took off in 2020. But the interesting thing is, the mainstream media publications like Financial Times and Wall Street Journal only started to take it seriously and pay attention to it in June 2021, this year, right? So these are some of the initial articles they came out with talking about Uniswap, which is one of the largest decentralized exchanges right now. And it's been interesting to see it gain this traction now. But there's still a knowledge gap, because in June, this first article that kind of built credibility for DeFi in the traditional financial news space. Talked about how DeFi fueled the market growth in the crypto space. Was quite interesting because it featured one of our clients, Nexo, they're a crypto lender, but then crypto Twitter, which is which is kind of where it's a sentiment check of where the space is at. They were quick to kind of point out that the two companies they highlighted in this article weren't really DeFi. They were really CeFi, centralized finance. So they featured Nexo and I think Celsius as well. So there lies the knowledge gap. So there's still a lot of work to do. And that's what we and my team focus on. And then I'm sure you've noticed the front pages of Fortune magazine. 2 weeks ago, FT Weekend had crypto on their front page again, had a really nice, I think there's 3 articles about crypto. And then this week, you may notice that The Economist had put decentralized finance on their front page. So here we are, and I think it's a big, seeing it on The Economist is huge for the credibility of DeFi really being something serious that even the traditional financial space and market is starting to take it seriously. So what do we need to do? So to build more collective trust and credibility for the crypto industry, we do need to have a strategic and effective PR strategy as an industry. This is obviously me speaking to those of you who are in crypto, but also I say this to a lot of my clients who are they're building the protocols of this space. And I just want to run through quick 4 tips on how to do that. So for practical tips for if some of you are founders or you're working in the space or you are working with company or your company is doing something in crypto, I think firstly, it's important to be a resource to media. We talk to journalists every day and they're still trying to wrap their heads around what's going on. Things move super fast and they don't, have time to keep up. So we often have calls with them to just sync up on crypto narratives and also just sync up on their knowledge and understanding of the space. So tip number 1, be a resource to media. Tip number 2, education is key. So really, the most effective way of educating our friends and the public is through the media. So it starts with educating journalists as well. And then the third tip is earned media does build credibility. I think in the crypto space, it's easy to, I'm in PR, but it's easy to pay for marketing or pay for sponsored posts. But I think especially in this market where we are in a bull run, there is a lot of money and people are spending them in all different directions. It's important to really earn your media placement. So that's just some advice to those of you in the space. And then, trust a PR partner, and that would be someone like us, YAF Global, but I think there are other PR firms in the space that are really trying to help companies tell their stories. And I think that what I'd say is we've got to have more communicators in the space. I think there's a lack of comms and marketers in the space. So if those of you who have comms and marketing skills, there is a gap in the market for that. And DeFi and crypto needs more people with this skill to really help provide guidance on how to shape the narrative. Otherwise, we do look like an echo chamber, and I think there was this one article in the FT Weekend which did label the crypto space as a cult, and I think that those in the industry would argue that they are not a cult. And then just lastly, we have launched a YAF DAO. I won't get into it, but basically it's a way to kind of encourage more communicators in the space and to, kind of delve into crypto and just learn about it by doing. It is on the, It's built on the XDAI chain. So for those of you who want to learn more, do reach out to me or talk to me after this. I'd love to tell you more about it. And the mission is to translate crypto and DeFi for the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sam. And I think that leads us nicely onto our second presentation from Marija, who is the Senior Product Manager at Wirex. Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Do
didn't.
you want to jump back in?
No, it's all good. That's my contact details.
Sorry. Oh, no. There we go. Sorry. So Marija is the Senior Product Manager at Wirex. Marija has over 7 years' experience in fintech, being deeply committed to Wirex's vision to make crypto open to all. Her expertise is in coordinating product releases, such as the recent Wirex MasterCard launch, collaborating with partners to educate consumers about the benefits of crypto, as well as conducting research into mass crypto adoption and the democratization of financial access. I'm excited for her to give a great overview of the benefits of blockchain. I'm sure many of them you'll be surprised by, but I will let Marija take it from here.
Thank you, Lottie, and hi, everyone. How do I go? Oh, there we go. So my question to you is, what do you think of when you think of blockchain? Is it crypto? Well, crypto may be blockchain, but blockchain is not just crypto. To ensure that we're all on the same page, here are 2 key definitions. Blockchain is the technology behind crypto, but it isn't limited to just crypto, which is a great thing, because blockchain is powering the transformation of so many different industries. To illustrate what I mean, I would like to invite some audience participation. So, please raise your hand if you have ever bought an NFT. Okay, we've got a couple, that's great. But this is still a bit of a niche market, so I'll let Natasha take it from here, but a little bit later on. How about number 2? Sent money to somebody in another country. Okay, a lot more of you, great. Started a savings account. Right, pretty much everyone, it is a fintech conference. Donated to charity. Almost all of you, fantastic. Visited a healthcare professional. Presumably everybody, right? All right, thank you for that. I'm going to focus on the last 4 of these. Thank you for giving your responses, but the second part will be another list of questions. I just won't ask for audience participation in the interest of time. However, I feel like in your heads you might be saying yes to a whole bunch of these. So the questions are, have you ever overpaid on international money transfers? Well, even if you don't think you have, you most likely have. The average transaction fee is 6% of the transaction amount. And if you're going bank to bank, it could be higher. So what's the blockchain solution to this? Well, crypto transfers are cheaper and faster. And there's even a cure for crypto volatility: stablecoins. Stablecoins peg their market value to an external stable asset, like US dollars, for example. But the best part about this is that it's essentially open to all. Anyone with an internet connection, if it's on their phone, on their tablet or laptop, can, at the very least, send or receive money. How? Well, there's an app for that. In fact, many different apps, depending on your location. The way this works is that these systems use blockchains like the Stellar network or the Ripple network to facilitate global remittances. Let's move on to question 2. Have you had your interest rate fall below the inflation rate? Again, the answer is probably yes. Here in the UK, the inflation rate is something like 2%, if not higher, whereas even the best rates on the savings accounts are lower than that. The best one that I managed to find was something like 1.76%, and that was on a 5-year fixed term. So what can blockchain do to help? Well, I'm not authorized to give you financial advice, but there is an alternative, which actually Shefali will be talking about later on. Decentralized finance, or DeFi, takes traditional financial operations and puts them on the blockchain. Now, the way this works is that it bypasses traditional financial institutions or banks and basically works through a smart contract. So you have a program that self-executes when certain conditions are met. That's cheaper, it's faster, and it's much more transparent. Now, obviously, this is really great. And there's a lot of ways to do this, but the biggest concern, I think, for a lot of people is how complicated it is. So as you heard from Sam, obviously people are already trying to translate that to the masses. But there's also people like Wirex who kind of offer a product to simplify that. We take the hard work out of it for you. Wirex recently launched X accounts, which offers up to 16%. How? Well, we act as the lender or liquidity pool provider. We reap the benefits, and we share the love. How about question 3? Have you wondered where your donations are really going? Did you know that up to 85% of donations go to overhead costs? There's a really useful tracker out there called Charity Navigator, which looks at these things. But as far as I could see, that only works in the US. So what about charities that are outside of the US, or charities that spring up around temporary things like crisis relief efforts? Well, we just don't know. But blockchain can help. Because blockchain is a distributed public ledger, there's a lot more accountability. Now, imagine a dashboard. You've got cases, you've got statuses, you've got stakeholders like suppliers or volunteers. And when a donation is received, it gets given a blockchain address. And then you can monitor it as it moves down the funnel. And then you will see very clearly which portion of the donation is allocated to each section. In other words, crypto for good. And the last question is, have you worried about the security of your medical data? Now, if you haven't, there is cause for concern. In the past decade, more than 189 million personal data breaches have been compromised. In the last year, there was an average of almost 2 data breaches per day, which is not great. What is the blockchain solution? Well, you might be concerned about having your private medical data on a public ledger, but actually the information can be encrypted into each block. And then it cuts down on time, it's more secure, and in cases of misdiagnosis, there's a very transparent record of what was actually done. So in Estonia, actually, almost 99% of prescriptions operate in this manner. So your doctor will record what your diagnosis is, you take it to the pharmacist, you get your prescription. Now, these 4 were just a small sample of the kind of uses that blockchain has. On this next slide, what I've done is I've taken recent headlines and I've allocated them into 2 sections. So on the left-hand side, you can see how blockchain is fighting hyperinflation, or in some cases, subverting authoritarian government control. On the right-hand side, you can see how other industries are using blockchain. So for example, the legal industry is seeking to democratize representation, or the music industry is tracking royalties. Policymakers are exploring how blockchain can be used to reimagine the voting process, and plenty more. Now, why are they doing this? Well, as you've just heard in all of these different examples, blockchain has a lot of benefits. It's much more transparent, it is much more accountable, it minimizes cost, and most importantly, it widens access to a lot more people. In other words, blockchain is building a better world for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marija. And next up, we have Shefali, who sits on the board at MakerDAO. So in case you didn't know, they're a crypto entity using the DAI stablecoin to facilitate DeFi globally. She's had a huge amount of experience across multiple senior roles, including as an angel investor in startups within the fintech and femtech arenas, as well as COO and CCO roles at TrueLayer and Stripe. She has a passion for women in tech, sitting on a board role at Ada's List, and will be talking to us today about Defi, the great economic equaliser.
Thank you.
So I have like 10 minutes or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Thanks, Lottie, for organizing and for inviting me. So I sit on the board of MakerDAO, and for those of you who don't know, Maker is a non-profit. Maker Foundation is a non-profit. It's a 2-year sort of stint where the whole of the 2 years has been spent trying to decentralize the DAO such that the community owns it. And so my tenure actually finishes in November, thank God, because it's been exhausting to do it for 2 years. But it's quite interesting because the whole point of its existence is the DAO being the community-owned coin as opposed to Bitcoin or Ethereum owned by who knows whom, really. Just to give you a bit of context about my background is in payments and in fintech. So as Lottie said, I was at TrueLayer for a while as SEO, and prior to that, I was at Stripe. Prior to that, I was at Apple for many years, and prior to that, I was at Christie's. And I mention this because Natasha's going to do an NFT talk. But when I was at Christie's in 2011, we were talking about NFTs and crypto and blockchain and looking at Bitcoin as a barter tool for art. And so this has gone a long way, and it's quite nice. Also, it's showing my age, which is crap. But anyway, it's quite nice to kind of do this thing because over the last 10 to 15 years, the way the market has changed is quite radical. There are no more buzzwords now than I've ever understood. Even in the first 2 talks, I'm like, I have no idea what they're saying, but let's follow along. But it's quite interesting to see how quickly the market has changed and how quickly people are adopting this new language of currency and commerce, and that you get to be a part of it is actually quite nice. And so when Lottie asked me to do this presentation, the first thing for me was thinking about what's the angle I present to you, because it's very easy to talk about this ad nauseum and how everybody's doing so well and you all gain cachet by doing it. But what's the opportunity for you and what's the angle for you to do it? And I landed on innovation and product because I don't know the general consensus of where you'll all work and what you'll all do, but I would imagine that you have an innate interest in this world. And so for you to think about as your careers develop and as your professional lives develop, how do you take a part of it and how do you become part of it and become part of this system and become part of its evolution? And the easiest way to do that is take an opportunity in part of the innovation and the productization of what crypto can do. And so my slides are not as lovely as the other 2 presenters, and I guess of the other 3 presenters, but it's to give you just a snapshot of what's the market doing at the moment, where is it going, and what potentially you can do in it. So the first is context, which I've just done a bit of, but to give you an idea, again, so to give you an idea of how early I was in crypto, just for context, I think I bought my first Bitcoin at about $19, and the second and on so forth from about 200. So I've been in it for a while. It's changed a lot. It's actually now more complex than it's ever been. I think more people talk about it as if they know, but they have no FI idea. And so you have to be, and I know to Sam's presentation, you have to be so trustworthy about who's doing what and what, because there's a lot of scammers out there actually. And that's why when you look at the regulatory landscape and the regulatory response to crypto, most regulators themselves are just so wary of it and don't know. So as you're building and evolving and thinking about products that you want to build in your companies or start your own companies, you have to kind of have it with that lens of what's the regulator doing, what's the market going to do, what do central banks really think about it, and how are they going to get involved. Because you could have really lovely payment infrastructure like the Stripes and the TrueLayers and the Addians and the Revoluts of the planet, but it means nothing if the people who actually regulate the stuff don't actually know what they're doing. So from a context point of view, you should kind of have that as well. So some numbers. Numbers are always nice. They're always helpful. Everything goes flat till August of 2020. And last year, I think, I don't know whether we had pandemic brain or what was going on. But if you can look at the absolute evolution of where the market is, and what that chart is effectively the DeFi market size since last October. And again, I think it's because you have access to tools like Coinbase and Robinhood and all the other sort of exchanges that are available on your app and on your phone that give you the flexibility of saying, well, let me just participate. There's a huge amount of FOMO that I think you all should think about, because also it's not easy money and it's very volatile. We talk about DeFi, but I think Maker's price point today, or just over the last day, has fluctuated 15.5% just today. So I'm like a bit wary and worried, but nonetheless. But just to give you an idea of where the things are. So what's the DeFi value? And I'm assuming I'm talking to an audience who knows what DeFi is, but it's effectively decentralized finance. It's effectively making sure the community owns what you'll build and what you'll buy and how you'll interact and your commerce on the internet. 82 billion is a lot of billion. It's a lot of billion in a asset and in a currency that most people don't understand, and most people on the planet don't trade in. But that's a lot of billion for that. And so when you look at how the currency has moved and the short time period in which it has, that should not only give you pause, but you should kind of also think about is how do I manipulate this and how do I opportunistically build stuff on this so that I can take advantage of upside. What I love is Aave's dominance. Aave is very fresh, it's very new, it's a really interesting company and a really interesting platform. But again, if you're looking at things and building in the space, I think you should think about companies like Aave. Payments is kind of interesting. I think we talked a little bit about it in the prior presentation. Again, looking at the flexibility, and Lottie said I have to do slides, so I just did these slides, but this is a day's worth of fluctuation and flexibility. But again, the volatility of it should give you an idea of whatever the underlying asset is and whatever the actual overarching transaction flow is, you're looking at a lot of volatility. So your thinking is when you're building things, how do you regulate, not regulate FCA regulate, but regulate within your product and educate your customers and educate your users about how you're going to use this as an overlay platform to build such that the fluctuation of the currency and the volatility of it is hedged. And that's a very interesting play, and I hope someone's building it because it's actually very interesting. DeFi lending, I think, is huge at the moment, and a lot of it is happening on DAI, and a lot of it is happening on a handful of stable coins. But lending is a really interesting play because you kind of think about it, and we just heard Wirex, and you're thinking about having a wallet and having coins in a wallet, and you're earning, 15, 16%, sometimes 7%. I think HSBC gives me 0.02% on a bloody term deposit, which is nothing. It's like I'm paying HSBC for money. So, when you think about the opportunity here, you need to kind of understand what you're giving up for what you're getting. But that's a massive market. 863 million just on lending is a massive market in DeFi. So composite, again, when you look at Aave or Compound, Maker's 14.5% just on that day. But again, on the lending aspect of it, you've got some really great platforms who are building and who are giving you a very healthy return, actually, and a very solid return for the assets that you put in there with them. But as you're thinking about building, that's a good use case. So the reason for this, and the title of this presentation is the great equalizer, and I think it is. And so a lot of the reason I joined Maker a couple of years ago is because it's the opportunity of thinking everybody owns everything and no one owns nothing. And that's why it's the great equalizer, because every single person on the planet, if you have a phone and a network and a computer and you have some idea of what this stablecoin idea is, or what this idea of a rate pegged and underwritten by Ethereum contracts and smart contracts is, then you have an opportunity to play a part in global commerce, which is kind of attractive. You could be here sitting in Canary Wharf trading DAI with a coffee farmer in Guatemala. That's kind of interesting. And so when you think about the absolute ubiquitousness of where this platform can go and where the currency can go and what you could do with it, if you are the unbanked or you have looking at financial inclusion or you're looking at economies in emerging markets that don't have the flexibility of centralized, stabilized governments and central banks, DeFi becomes a very, very interesting proposition. And so for you to think about, well, how do you build in those emerging economies and how do you get to them? So when you look at a use case here, there are quite a few of them. So many of these are, I think, 12 months old or even less so. So many of these I had no idea what they were. So I had to kind of look it up myself. And I'll buy a coffee to anyone who knows any one of those. But it's one of those things where how quick this market is moving actually presents a very good opportunity here to not just hedge risk, but actually build product that can actually gain user growth very, very quickly. So I kind of love the NFT space. I love art, and I'm sure Natasha's going to give you a fantastic presentation on it. But it's really about how do you use this underlying technology to then spread out use cases, build a platform for not just you and me and everybody in London and Paris or Singapore, wherever, but anywhere on the planet to take part in ubiquitous commerce. And that's quite interesting. So I'm going to be very short because I think the questions are going to be very interesting. But for me, this is really what it's all about, which is how do you just build an underlying platform? And that's my presentation, I think. I don't think I have anything else after this. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Shefali. So next up, we have Natasha, and Natasha is the new head of marketing at Terra Virtua, which is the world's first fully immersive social digital collectibles platform. With over 10 years' experience managing consumer marketing campaigns across film, TV, gaming, lifestyle, and digital, she joined Terra Virtua only last month with a focus on bringing NFTs to the mainstream. Following on from Maria's presentation about the various uses of blockchain technology, in this talk she'll explore how NFTs are reinventing collecting and digital ownership through fandom for crypto, film and TV audiences. There you go, Natasha.
Hi, everybody. So, yes, as Lottie said, I've only been at Terra Virtua for a month, but my background is in film, entertainment, sports and television. So a lot of that comes into the platform for Terra Virtua and the digital collectibles that we release. So in case you're wondering, that background, which Shefali was asking me about, why go into NFTs? Today I'm going to talk to you about how NFTs are turbocharging fandom. And you would have heard a lot about NFTs. There's multi-million-dollar sales. There's Christie's getting involved, an old auction house that are, talking about it 10 years ago, but now getting involved in it. There are countless celebrities buying up NFTs. You've got NBA players. You've got singers like Jason Derulo that you hear things about in the press buying insane amounts of NFTs and spending lots of money. You've got big brands like Coca-Cola who have created NFT wearables. And you've also, just last week at the Met Gala, had an NFT of CryptoPunk get rocked on the red carpet. So the question I get asked a lot is, what are NFTs? And in a really simple way, they're non-fungible tokens, which doesn't mean a lot to most people, because they'd go, what is that? But AKA, that means that they're unique assets authenticated by the blockchain as proof of ownership. And they live in a digital world. So what's really unique about them, other than the fact that they're on the blockchain, is that they're revolutionizing the way in which us as fans engage with brands, engage with entertainment, engage with events. And actually, it's about bringing us closer to things that we love, bringing us closer to television shows, movies, comic books, sporting events. And that is what's really changing within the space. And that's how NFTs can actually turbocharge fandom. So the first thing is that NFTs are reinventing the way that we collect. So obviously, I'd imagine a lot of you probably collect a few things. I know my mum collects little fairy figurines, and some of my friends collect, DC Comics figures and Funko Pops and things like that. But actually, having space on your shelf, if you're a big collector, is a big problem. You want to collect more, but you actually can't. You don't have space to put that anywhere. You don't have that issue with NFT because it's fully digital. So you can collect, you can get some enjoyment out of something in a digital space without the issue of wondering where you have to store it. What it means is that it's also authenticated and always mint. So always mint is really important when you're collecting. It increases the value if it's in mint condition, certainly for the case of comic books, from 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, if you have a really mint comic book, that increases in value. Or simple things like Pokemon cards, if you have an original one that's, in a lovely little case that you probably have never played with when you were 25 years ago when you were a kid, then yeah, it's worth a lot now, but actually, the likelihood it isn't going to be mint. But with it being a digital asset, it's always going to be mint, and it's always authentic because we have the blockchain to authenticate that. So especially in the art world where, the questions about whether a piece of art is real or fake and it has to get authenticated, we have the blockchain to enable us to do that. So we have that ledger that tells us that it's an authentic collectible from a certain artist. what is really interesting about NFTs at the moment is they can also give you a unique digital identity. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard about CryptoPunks, which has been extremely popular, and having that unique identity is really exciting. But one of the latest ones that you might have heard of is Bored Apes Yacht Club. So Bored Apes launched earlier in the year, but they released 10,000 unique icons and identifiers and pieces of art that people could buy. And actually, they were quite cheap back in the day when they got released, worth several thousands now. But it's not just the fact that you have this unique piece of artwork. It is way more than that. There is, within owning a Bored Ape, you have access to a special membership. You have access to member events, member-only boards, physical events and tickets to physical events, and extra rewarded NFTs. So actually what's interesting about projects like the Bored Apes Yacht Club is they're creating their own micro communities of owners and hyper-connected social networks through one kind of product. And where normally you would buy an NFT and be done with it and have that art, actually by having it as a membership, you're creating a community within itself. The interesting thing about Bored Apes Yacht Club, for example, is actually not only do you buy the artwork that is your unique digital identifier, you actually own the copyright for it, so for that unique design. And that's really interesting in the way that NFTs are changing the space. So if you own a Bored Ape, you effectively own the license. So you can go and sell that to a company and get merchandise made out of it. You can put it on a T-shirt, you can put it in a mug, and you can earn royalties from that, which is something really exciting in the space. Another way in which NFTs are turbocharging fandom is allowing for deeper engagement for fans in the things that they really love. So take, for example, in the movie industry, you can create NFTs for old franchises. So we worked with the Godfather trilogy and Top Gun and a few other IPs with Paramount Pictures to create NFTs for fans of those movies from the 1980s, not 80 years ago, from the 80s, for fans to buy posters, buy collectibles, and get engaged in a new way. But actually, if you're talking about new movies, for example, Godzilla vs. Kong, which was out earlier this year, obviously with the pandemic happening last year and people being locked down globally, a lot of movies got pushed back. A lot of movie studios where they make a lot of money is in their merchandising, and they couldn't do that because of global supply chain issues. So one, that was a huge issue for them, but there's also the safety element of that. So I know a lot of film studios, a lot of game studios who normally sell a lot of merchandise, they were unwilling to get their stock out. They couldn't get it made. They didn't want to send it to consumers' houses just in case there's a safety element of like the hygiene and making sure they're not transferring things into people's homes. So what do you do if a big part of you can't go to cinemas and a big part of your model is selling merchandise for a film? Actually, by creating NFTs, you'll be able to merchandise in a different way and have the whole globe access that. One of the things that we did for Godzilla vs. Kong, for example, is, if that moves on, is create these amazing fully animated 3D models that you could interact with and purchase for the film. But what's really interesting about these is that for us, so usually when you have the traditional merchandise model, the journey ends with purchase. Once you bought it, it's in your house, that's it, it's done. But with NFTs and with Terra Virtua, as we flip this, for us, the journey actually begins when you buy something. So take, for example, some of the 3D models that we have. This is our VFlect model, which we can customize, and we've actually made one with Wirex as well. You can interact with this in a 3D environment on your computer. You can host all your collectibles and you can pop them out on the shelf. You can move around the space, interact with different models that you might have purchased, and also put different artwork up on your walls. This is one of the environments that we have, which is called the Fan Cave, but we have a few others, including an art gallery and the Terra Dome, which you saw Godzilla in, which is a huge, big environment where you can put ships and cars and different types of models within there. But actually, any of the collectibles that you buy on our platform, you can also engage with them through augmented reality and virtual reality to showcase them and engage with the things that you've bought. So It's quite small at the moment, so you can't see it, but that's an example of one of our 3D animated models of Don West from Lost in Space, the Netflix show, and it's hyper-realistic, showing his face. You can rotate around it. You can see there's some animated movements there. So you can actually engage with it in a different way, even if you physically don't have it. What's really exciting as well about the space is you can do more with traditional media. So, for example, with comic books, you can dive deeper into the fandom. If you're a comic book fan, you kind of want to know a lot about the lore and the backstory and become a true fan. We released a comic book earlier this year, the world's first NFT-only graphic novel called Bloodlines, which was written and created and designed by an award-winning writer called Nick Percival. And actually what's really interesting about some of the technology that we've got is that you can view your comic book, but you can also strip back the text, or you can strip it back to see what the original drawings were, the concept art that the artist came up with. And in order to get more engaged into the things that you are really passionate about. So, very top line, what do we see the challenges are in the NFT space and digital collectibles? Certainly, the first is that crypto is very much a club. I got a really interesting stat the other day that on OpenSea, for example, you've got about $1 billion worth of sales, but actually there's only about 200,000 wallets open within there, which is a lot smaller than you might think given the number of transactions. This week, I don't know if any of you saw, but Snoop Dogg came out as a big NFT whale, buying up $17 million worth of NFTs in the last 2 months, and announced that he was the one that everyone was looking at. But that's one individual spending a huge amount of money within that space. So actually, it's not as big as people may think. But my job, and certainly the job at Terra Virtua, is trying to take it to the mainstream. So how do we convince people who aren't familiar with NFTs, how do we convince people who aren't familiar with cryptocurrencies, who might have some boundary knowledge about getting into the space and feel secure enough to get in there? And the first thing that we need to do is try and address some of the preconceptions around NFTs and also educate people around that. The question I got asked when I told people that I was moving into this space was, why would I buy an NFT because I can't physically have it, can't physically touch it? But actually, definitely with Generation Z, that who are digital natives, who are used to buying digital assets and engaging with entertainment through, gaming platforms like Fortnite, where you can watch concerts, or Roblox and Minecraft. They've certainly got that. We don't need to address that. But for everybody else, why would you purchase something that you physically can't own? The real thing is that people are doing that all the time anyway, but not realizing that that's what they're doing, is they're buying digital assets without ownership. So, for example, you might go onto Amazon and have a Kindle app and buy a book, and you've paid £8 for it, but once you read it, it says on your Kindle, if you decide to get rid of Amazon or don't get your Kindle anymore or don't update it, you don't actually own the book. You don't physically own it. You can't transfer it to somebody. You can't sell it and make a profit. You're just borrowing it effectively from Amazon for £8. The same thing with movies is if you have a Sky subscription, you can buy a movie from them, unless you buy it home and keep, which they send you a DVD in the post. You're buying a film for £15, but you don't actually own it. That's the difference with an NFT, is that you have that ownership. So it's educating people on what the difference is of buying an NFT and why it's worth it, and the fact that you can transfer it or you can sell it on or potentially make a profit if that's what you want to do. And then the other misconception is that it's difficult to get into or difficult to buy an NFT. I think the buying element is that people hear that NFTs cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, or that they can't afford. And actually, there are NFTs, certainly on our platform, and digital collectibles that you can buy that are under $10. We want to make sure at Terra Virtua that we're open to everybody. So rather than selling, we would rather sell 1 million items at $3 than sell 3 items at $1 million each, because that's just not attainable for everybody else, for regular people. So how can you make that more accessible? And that's certainly something we're looking at. We've just announced a partnership a couple of days ago with the Indian Super League, ISL, based in India, which is their premium football league. And actually, how do we make sure that's affordable for the majority of the Indian market? So that's something that we're really passionate about, making sure that fans, regardless of how much you earn, can buy something and engage with NFTs. And then the other element is that it's difficult to get into because, you know, I need to open a wallet, I need to connect my MetaMask, and I have to do all these things that actually could be complicated if you don't really understand, or, you know, or you feel like you need to read like 10 pages worth of information about how to buy something. For us, we want to make that as easy as possible. So, you know, at Terra Virtual, we set up the wallet for you if you don't have one. You can buy using your credit card or using fiat currencies if you want to. And you have the option to buy as a cryptocurrency as well. So it's making sure it's as easy as possible for consumers as they get into that space, so they don't suddenly go, actually, that's not for me because it's too complicated. So I think that's the big challenges as us as an industry face. The ultimate message that I want to leave you guys with is that NFTs empower you. So they empower artists who can create, put up their work and earn money off the initial sale and any secondary sales, where they also get royalties and cuts going forward as they become more popular. They empower license holders like movie makers, big brands, but also those small individuals who own NFTs and can license them and earn royalties for them. But they also empower fans to be more engaged in the things that they love, are more invested, but also be able to make choices about what they spend and where they spend it, and know that they have something that's authentic, original, and that they can engage with, other than just putting it on their shelf. Thank you, that's me.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And now on to Rita, who has over 10 years' experience in project management across a huge range of spheres, including art, design, and IT. She began her Ecom Pay career as project manager, but quickly found herself fluent in payments, technology, and product. Rising quickly through the ranks to become head of product, Margarita has recently relocated to London to oversee the payment service providers' products in UK and Western Europe. Rita will be using Ecom Pay's experience with crypto companies to discuss how businesses can benefit from crypto payments.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. And so, as I already said, I am really new to London. Happy to be here. Today I'm going to present you maybe a little bit more obvious than previous presenters. And I want to discuss whether it is useful for other businesses to use crypto payments in their work. So we at Ecom Pay are an international payment provider, and we also have our own license in Visa and MasterCard, which allows us to be a direct acquirer. And also we have a fantastic product with our partner that can allow you to work with cryptocurrencies. But go into this later. So as we already all know, this is a huge market. We know that the whole amount of this market is closer to $2.2 trillion, and amount of users is growing every day. And no doubt, this is so interesting to get into this market. And sometimes businesses just don't know how benefit from this. But there are several obvious reasons how you can benefit from having a crypto payments within your business. So first of all, you really need to know that crypto payments are very international, meaning that you are not very connected with all the jurisdictions or like countries, and you are not into any borders that can prevent you from transferring money. Also, it is really fast. When we all think of transferring like bigger sum of money from one country to another, we always think of something very complicated when you have to fill all the forms and wait for several days or like weeks for this transfer to come through, and cryptocurrency is so much easier. But last but not the least, it is rather secure. I mean that there are some mistakes that can take place in banks or like more classical institutions, and here you can be sure that your money is somehow protected by this technology itself. I mean, that if this transaction already took place, then it's your money, and you just know for sure that no one particular institution or like person can take it from you, because everyone knows where they go. But for sure, this is not that perfect, and there are some things you really need to think through before you start working with cryptocurrencies. So first of all, as I mentioned, that you are not connected with countries and jurisdictions. It's not particularly true when you come to withdrawing this money. So you really need to think through how can you work with this stage of your transactions. Also, you really need to bear in mind that different currencies are different risks and different rules and different almost anything that is connected with them. So be aware that you have to know exactly what you're working with. And as there are lots of currencies, there are lots of different service providers. And we already listened today for several speeches of companies that benefit from working with cryptocurrencies or like blockchain, but they're not all really great, and not all of them are with good intentions there. So you have to be careful who we are working with. And there are also ways you can really benefit from solutions that are already presented on the market by different companies, such as our partner. And there are several things here that you can benefit from. Firstly, for sure, you can diversify your payment portfolio. And as now cryptocurrency is getting more and more involved into everyday actions, some countries even legalize this whole thing with working with cryptocurrencies. So it can be useful for you to stay up to date with the modern world. Also, as we discussed, that there are no boundaries, and the only thing you need is internet to get your payment, then it allows you to get global reach as well as a business. And it can be really fast, because sometimes you can transfer a huge amount of money up to 15 minutes, which is impossible otherwise. And some products and solutions on the market can allow you not to even like touch crypto. It means that you can allow your customers to pay you in crypto, and you will be settled in fiat, meaning that you don't have any kind of risks, and that you don't really deal with all this bookkeeping and all the like complicated stuff. Also, when you are coming to choose particular payment provider for you, make sure that it is secured by any kind of user score or whatever, because this is a really important part of this business still. And as you may know, that in different payment institutions, there are some severe rules about chargebacks, where your business can be presented as a bad institution after getting too much chargebacks. Here in crypto, you don't have this, which is obviously good. And in case you already integrated with your payment provider, sometimes you don't even need a separate integration or technical stuff involved at all, which is great. So this is basically it. I just wanted to present you that cryptocurrency should be a really great opportunity for your company, and you have to consider taking this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rita. So this is the final presentation of the night, and this is from Aruna, who is the VP of Customer Success at Elliptic. She uses her deep experience fighting financial crime and fraud to advise Elliptic's customers on the risks and regulatory requirements for crypto. With a decade in traditional forensic investigations, financial crime prevention and compliance at Kroll and EY, Aruna applies real-world experience when guiding customers on how best to use Elliptic's services. To finish us off, she'll be providing us with a case study of the Colonial Pipeline. She'll also explain the important role that blockchain analytics plays in helping the industry to respond to this growing trend of financial crime.
Thank you very much, and thanks again to Level 39 and Wirex for having me. As Lottie already said, I work at Elliptic. We provide blockchain analytics solutions, including anti-money laundering solutions, investigation solutions across financial institutions, to crypto businesses, to law enforcement regulatory agencies. And what I'm going to be talking about today, as Lottie already mentioned, is the role that blockchain analytics can play in tackling this increasing trend of ransomware. And some of you may remember the Colonial Pipeline attack that happened earlier this year, back in May. The Colonial Pipeline provides critical infrastructure that accounts for just under 50% of fuel in the east coast of the US. And they were victims of a cyber attack by the ransomware group, the DarkSide. And it basically took down their entire operations and caused mass disruption. And one of the real, and also, as often is the case in ransomware, they requested payment in Bitcoin. And one of the real challenges for law enforcement when it comes to addressing ransomware is the lack of reporting. And without that reporting, it makes it very difficult for them to be able to identify the groups involved. And so the critical role that blockchain analytics plays is not only in identifying the wallets that have been used, the wallets that are involved, but also empowering stakeholders more broadly in the industry as they think about how they can address and tackle ransomware. So in the terms of the Colonial Pipeline, our starting point was we knew of 2 victims and 2 payments. So the New York Times reported the Colonial Pipeline payment on around the 7th or 8th of May. And at the same time, we knew the reports of Brentag making a payment of around $4.4 million on the 11th of May. And what this allowed us to do was then have a look at transactions on the blockchain and identify instances where we could match these parameters in terms of the rough amounts and the dates involved. And in doing that, we could take what started off as tens of hundreds of thousands of transactions on any given day and narrow it down to a small handful. So we ended up with about 7 or 8 transactions that fit this characteristic. But we need to narrow it down further. So the next piece of intelligence we were able to layer on top of that was that we know that the dark side operates as ransomware as a service. So what this means is that the dark side will act as the ransomware developer, so they develop the malware, and then they will recruit and pay for a ransomware affiliate. Now the affiliate, they're the ones that are essentially getting their hands dirty. They're out there spreading the infection. And then the ransom itself will then typically be split between the 2 parties. Now, in this case, we knew from intelligence in the darknet, we'd seen the dark side recruiting for affiliates, so we knew in this instance what we were looking for. We were looking for a ransomware split payment of 15% to the developer and 85% to the affiliate. So we could look within that small handful of transactions and narrow it down even further to see which ones met this characteristics, and we ended up with 2 potential candidates, which I've mapped out here. So if you can see, we've got the potential Brentag payment on the top, and the potential Colonial Pipeline payment on the bottom. And when you drill down in a little bit further, we could see that in both of these cases, it met that characteristic we were looking for of that 85%, 15% split. So feeling pretty confident that we found the transactions that we're looking for, but another piece of intelligence that we were able to then layer on top of that as well was a couple of days later, there were reports that the DarkSide group had disbanded, that their infrastructure had been taken down, and they claimed that their wallet had been emptied a few days later on the 13th of May. So that's something else that we could then have a look in the blockchain, full transparency, and see if that had taken place. And indeed it had. So there were 107.8 Bitcoin that was transferred on the 13th of May to an unidentified wallet. So we were pretty sure right now we'd found what we were looking for. Just in case there was any doubt at all of this was basically confirmed a couple of weeks later. The US, the DOJ, confirmed that they had claimed part of the DarkSide ransom, and we can see a payment of 69.6 Bitcoin going to an address that matched the same address that was listed in the seizure documents from the DOJ. The only problem is the wallet we identified here was only created in March, and we know that the dark side has been operating since about 2020. So it means that they must have used other wallets before this wallet in March. So the next question we have to look at is, can we identify the other wallets that they used previously? And the short answer is yes, we can, with a little bit of network analysis. So what we're doing is saying, well, we know now that there exists this relationship between the developer and the affiliate. So let's have a look and see where these same affiliates have received payments that match this same characteristic in other instances. And we keep doing that repeatedly until we can identify all the wallets involved. And we did that and added another 5 or 6 odd wallets to the cluster. Now, this is really powerful because it means that you no longer have to actually rely on a victim reporting to be able to identify the wallets involved. You can actually just see it all on the blockchain. And what this also then allows us to do is understand a lot more about the behavior of the group over time as well. And that includes looking at the outflows of cash. Now, what that does is helps us to understand where the dark side is looking to launder their funds, where they're looking to cash out, essentially. And if I go forward, there we go. Mapping it out on the right. Now, what you'll see with this massive lines and dots is essentially where you have each of these circles representing a cluster of wallets and transactions taking place, is that you can see there's a number of transactions splitting up in different directions, layering on top of each other. And this is actually not uncommon as a methodology in money laundering in any space, whether it's in the fiat world or the crypto world. And what the perpetrators are really trying to do is make it harder for people to trace funds, and at the end of the day, making the financial institution at the end of it all, making it harder for them to know that this transaction relates to ransomware in the first place, or relates to financial crime. And when we take a step back and have a look at how these funds were distributed, we can see that the majority of Bitcoin went to exchanges. And the good thing is many of those exchanges are using our solutions, so they can see that the transaction involved related to ransomware, and they could take the necessary steps. They can report to law enforcement and so on and so forth. But as others have mentioned already today, both Shefali and Rita, the importance of regulation. Not all locations are regulated, and as a result, there are exchanges that therefore are not doing these checks. They're not screening transactions, and this is definitely a loophole that groups like the dark side take advantage of in order to be able to successfully launder funds from financial crime. We also saw the use of mixers, in this case BitMix, as another effort to try and hide the trace of funds. But another increasing trend that we see is the use of darknet marketplaces. So in this instance, it was Hydra Marketplace. Hydra is a Russian language darknet market. It's a place that you will find, I suppose, all the usual things you expect to find in a darknet market. You can buy and sell narcotics, you can buy counterfeit goods, hacking tools, and everything else. But one of the things specifically is you can pay for a service that will convert Bitcoin into cash. And the way that works is you will send them Bitcoin. They will then take bundles of cash, conceal them in locations typically across Russia, and then send you the coordinates so that you can go and collect your cash. So what becomes really clear here, and I know a couple of people have mentioned this already, when we talk about the importance of regulation and enforcement, is the important role that it plays when thinking about how criminals are able to cash out from financial crime. And when I was thinking about this topic and choosing this topic to talk about today a few weeks ago, I couldn't have planned it better even if I had tried, because this week, a couple of days ago on Tuesday, the US Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Asset Control, or OFAC, who really set the tone globally when it comes to sanctions, they issued their most significant sanctions in the crypto asset space to date. They imposed a sanction on a crypto asset exchange, claiming that that exchange was facilitating money laundering in crypto assets, specifically relating to ransomware. So the message that they're sending is really, really important and really, really clear. They're saying that regulators will not tolerate crypto exchanges becoming essentially conduits for ransomware groups. So, albeit I know this is a very high-level overview, but hopefully it has shown a little bit about how blockchain analytics plays a really important role in monitoring transactions like these. It hopefully can see that it allows law enforcement to follow the flows of money, potentially seize funds, but also it really allows financial institutions and crypto exchanges to be able to screen the transactions they're involved in and identify where there are links to criminal activity, links to ransomware, and ultimately address and stop money laundering. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Aruna, and that concludes our panel talks. So I hope that you all learned something, whether you're a hardcore crypto fan or a newbie to the space, but more importantly, realised what role women are playing in the crypto space and the potential they have to play in it as well. So just before we go on to the Q&A, I just wanted to close with a few final words about this year's Women in Crypto campaign. As mentioned earlier, we kicked off the Power Listing campaign for the first time last year. However, we're very proud to announce that we are back again for a second year. So from today, we've opened nominations for Inspirational Women for our Rising Women in Crypto Power List 2021. So these will be looked at based on their widespread achievements, potential, influence, ambition, leadership skills, and innovation. So if you head to wirexapp.com/womeninCrypto, you'll be able to nominate either yourself or someone you know for this award. As per last year, we've got an exciting lineup of judges to help look through all these nominations, and we'll decide who the top 10 should be. So just take a note of these dates. So we'll reveal the judges on the 11th of October. Nominations will close a few weeks later on the 29th of October, and we'll announce the full long list on the 5th of November. And finally, the top 10 on the 11th of November, concluding our 2021 Power List campaign. So please do get nominating today, and we look forward to seeing all of your incredible nominations. So, just to conclude the event, we of course want to give our audience the opportunity to ask questions to our panellists. And to give the live streamers a chance as well, we opened up the Wirex community forum earlier this week to encourage any questions that could be pre-requested. So I'll read these out one by one, and if our live audience have any additional questions at the end, please do ask them. So firstly, we have a question from For Wirex for Glory, and he said, 12 months is a long time in crypto. You did this event in 2020, so has anything changed in that time for the women featured? So given that we both work at Wirex, I thought it would be best that Maria takes this one.
Should I come up? Or because otherwise
Yeah.
Sorry. It's a bit awkward. So answering that question, obviously you've just heard that so much goes on in the industry. Like, we have a joke that 1 month is the equivalent of 5 years. So we're all pretty ancient by now. But for women specifically in the crypto space, I think over the past year, we've seen so much progress. So when this was initially launched, obviously, we were concerned about the fact that there weren't that many women in the sector, and there weren't that many women who were looking to invest in crypto. Now we can see that both of that has changed. Like, even in Wirex itself, we have both promoted internally and hired women to roles such as head of marketing, head of regulatory affairs, head of compliance. We welcomed our first non-executive director. So lots of progress in that regard, but also looking at kind of the consumer side of things. So I don't know, I think I'm allowed to really reveal this, but we recently did a survey. And we've done a lot of surveys over the years, but in the majority of them, it has always been male-dominated. So most of the people responding were, I think, like 80% male. For the first time, I think just last week, we did a survey in the Philippines, and there was 53% female respondents. So that's amazing news. So we can definitely see the effects of things like this, like Women in Crypto, like all sorts of educational things, materials going out online. We can definitely see the fact that stories from women that work in crypto, from women who invest in crypto, they're having an effect. That's my response. I don't know how you want to do this.
I think I'm just going to take the mic now. So next up, we have our very own Jenny_Wirex sending a question in from New Zealand, and this one's for Sam. So over the last 12 months, do you feel the narrative is changing and you're seeing more representation in your respective fields?
Cool, thanks for that question. In terms of representation, so I I do think about it. I would say that my clients, all our clients are are male-led. We actually, I don't think I have worked with I've only worked with one female founder in my 4 years of starting App Global, but there are a lot of women that I work with in the industry, and whether it's changed over the last 12 months, I still think there's work to do, but I do work alongside a few women in the industry, like whether we partner with them with conferences and stuff, but But yeah, there are a lot of women. We are working on obviously making sure that there is more leaders, and actually that women are inspired and motivated to get into this space. I think it can be quite intimidating, but I didn't have a finance background before jumping in this space, or a technical background either, and there's still so much to do. So I do encourage women to really jump in, and you're more than welcome in the crypto industry.
Thank you very much. So next up we have SP Barker 2 asking, some of the panelists aren't working in crypto, they're working with crypto. How would they describe attitudes in the financial industries towards the rise of crypto and DeFi? And are there other market players feeling threatened, or do they view it as an opportunity? So this one for Rita.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a great timing, by the way, because today the news released that China is forbidden to work with crypto, and this is a great illustration to an answer, I think, because yesterday I got an email from PayPal launching the crypto payments in UK, and today China is forbidden to work with crypto, meaning that basically I think that countries, they are really afraid of cryptocurrencies and they really want to regulate it. And more classical financial institutions such as banks, they're highly regulated, and that's why they're not very into this market as well. But all the fintech companies and some smaller startups, they really can benefit from this, and they're really rushing into this market, and which is great. I really think that this is the time when, with the help of really great companies on this market, we all can benefit from the technology itself. Yeah.
And next up we have old_Doge asking a question for Aruna. Financial services, conventional and otherwise, is still a total boys' club. Is there something inherent in the technology of blockchain-powered payments that makes it a more equitable space for women?
Thank you. I think the answer, a bit of a cop-out answer, has to be sort of. And what I mean by that is I think that the argument that, crypto has the power to democratize the world of traditional finance and breaking down barriers to entry for everybody, but particularly for women, I think is a really, really powerful argument, and one that certainly rings true. But I would also say, echoing a little bit of what Samantha was just saying, in terms of actual participation, there are still more men that invest in crypto than women at the moment. And in terms of the gender gap, I believe that it's actually wider in crypto than it is in traditional investments. But I do think that there has been change. I think that events like this play an important part of that. There was a report that I think Gemini published back in March that was looking at the UK specifically and was looking at the adoption of crypto, and they saw a 20% increase in the adoption of crypto amongst women in the UK. So really promising and powerful statistics, but I do think that as with all gender parity, unfortunately, there's still quite a way to go. So.
So next up we have Fran93, who said, from your experience in the field, why do you think there are so few women who decide to invest in crypto, and what factors do you believe will have the biggest impact in changing this behaviour? And Maria, this one's for you again.
Okay, I'm going to stay seated this time around. I think that, I mean, obviously a lot of this is based on kind of stereotypes and generalizations, but for the most part, women tend to be more risk averse. And I was reading a book recently about like how women rise, and one of the things that it said was that women tend to overvalue expertise. So whereas men might feel more comfortable, like they see something about, they see about crypto, they see the benefit, they might go and invest in that. Women need to really understand. And as we've talked a lot about this on this panel today, like it's quite complicated. So there's a lot to learn, and I think that might be one of the barriers for women actually going and investing. But again, as you heard from some of the answers just now, that is improving. Like lots more women are beginning to invest. More information is available out there. So I think women are starting to do a lot more research and beginning to feel more confident to invest.
Thank you very much. And next, Chen_Wirex has asked a question for Natasha. What do you think is the most exciting thing about working in the crypto industry?
Well, that's a big question. Well, certainly from the space that I'm looking at in digital collectibles and NFT is how quickly the market changes. And actually, from a technology point of view, if the market changes quickly, we can develop quickly and take a lead on what people are talking about, listen to the community, make those changes there and then into our platform and into the NFTs and digital collectibles that we create. So, for example, one of the things that was huge from a commentary point of view was our NFTs environmentally friendly, and actually we were on Ethereum blockchain before, but we made a shift this year to Polygon, which is more environmentally friendly, takes a lot less energy to create and mint NFTs, and that was directly from hearing and listening to the voices of our community, and we could react quickly. So I think that's the exciting part about the space.
Thank you. And the final question that was pre-requested was from Diana Usko1, has asked, what do you think is going to be the next big thing in the crypto industry, and how important do you think it is to have more women at the forefront of the industry moving forward? So Shefali, you're the only outstanding.
Give me the easy question. So I think I had a slide on it at the end, which was, these are all the things that you should be thinking about. I think it's hard to really describe and say what's going to be the next big thing because no one really knows. And I think to Natasha's point, it's just moving so quickly that you kind of have to move along with the paces, otherwise you're going to be left behind. I'll give you two examples, if I may, of how bonkers the market is. So I'm in the process of buying a house, and I said to the developer, can I pay by crypto? And he was like, oh, yeah, absolutely, you should. And then he says, but the lawyers might not like it. So I think I've had about 14 emails with the lawyers to just kind of figure out if they understand what we're trying to do and converting crypto to fiat to buy a property. And the absolute lack of education, lack of wanting to know, forget knowing, just lack of wanting to know is a huge inability and a huge barrier to entry of any of us participating in this economy. Because if all of the ancillary services are not going to do anything and they're not going to show any effort to care about adopting a new way of currency, no matter how innovative you are, no matter how innovative this panel is and what they do, it means nothing. And so there's a huge element of education there, which I think is the sooner everybody gets it and the sooner everybody adopts it, the sooner all of us participate in it. As to women, my second example is I'm in the process of setting up a VC fund, and one of the things we invest in is in Defi. And the criteria we have for investing is one of the founding team has to be a woman or a person from an ethnic minority. You can be a man or a woman from an ethnic minority, but one of the founding team has to be either a woman or an ethnic minority. And the amount of deal flow that I've got from women entrepreneurs in DeFi is absolutely extraordinary. I don't agree with your point, Marie, about education and confidence, because I think it's not about that, it's the opportunity. It's all there, no one has given us a foot in the door. And so if you have a foot in the door, and if you have windows and doors open to you, there's a flood of very interesting businesses that are run by women, that are founded by women and ethnic entrepreneurs that actually, whether it's in crypto or DeFi or fintech or generally across the board, give an opportunity to people to really think about their businesses, think about investment, and think about product market fit and shipping and making, you know, quite a nice piece of money about this. So I think there's a huge element here of the institutionalization of women not being part of the system that has to be broken before you can kind of go, well, what's the innovation in crypto? It's not just crypto and DeFi, it's everything. And so if you're given an opportunity and if you're given a chance to kind of open the market and put your foot through the door, there's a ton of opportunity there. All of the women that I invest in and all of the business that I invest in that are founded by women, they are extraordinarily stable businesses. They're more resilient, they outperform, they're better, their employees are happy, the NPS scores are fantastic. They are great women and great leaders. They're great managers. I mean, I think that's one of the things we think about business all the time. You leave because your manager is absolute crap. And so, you know, you have to look at a leader and a CEO and a founder and go, are they visionary and are they brilliant and are they going to lead me to the next big thing and are they going to take care of my career and take care of me? And women leaders, whether we like it or not, and you know, no offense to the chaps in the room, but we're just better at it. And so the more we have and the more opportunities you have to do it, I would strongly encourage you to take a punt and take a risk, because there are quite a few of us who are looking very actively to invest a couple of $1 million here, there and everywhere in women founders and women entrepreneurs in every sector, particularly in finance, because I think Aruna was mentioning the gender gap and the gender pay gap and the gender wealth gap. We have to kind of figure out how to equalize it pretty bloody quickly. So the quicker you guys decide to build your businesses and stuff, let us know.
Thank you very much. And just a final one, if anyone in the audience has any questions to ask.
Oh. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. No, please. No. No, off you. Okay, this to Aruna. I just wondered, what was the name of your mother's maiden name, and what was the first school you went to? No, not really. No, I wanted to ask. Obviously, you're
an open book. It's fine.
I wanted to ask you. You're obviously involved in an area where you're tracking, tracing, and trying to locate, let's say, bad dudes, as the former US president might kind of articulate it. And I'm just interested, do you yourselves as an organization have to put additional structures in place to kind of protect your own business? Are you kind of do you become in the sightlines of some of those organizations?
I think any organization that works in the sort of financial crime, risk and compliance space has that element to it. I think that also, like any business that works in the digital space, has to think about the cyber implications and cyber attacks and everything else. So, and so in that sense, yes, absolutely. But I think that we also just protect our business the way that we protect our business either way. But we also don't shy away from talking about the work that we do. So, a non-answer for you.
Hello, hi, Shefali. Just a quick and quite a general question. There's a lot being spoken about compliance, and especially in the US. I think today there was a move. So the FCA and the FCS both trying their best to regulate as much as they can. And where do you see that regulation really happening in terms of retail customers? And what would be the sort of longer-term impacts of it?
So I think we've done a really poor job as an industry on consumer protection. It's been pretty shit, to be honest. And I think we have an awesome responsibility. If you want people to be in the market, you have to make them understand what the market is. And the sole point of an existence of a regulator or a government is to protect the consumer. And if we as an industry have really not done that, because everybody here, and I mean, let's be honest, is looking for quick wins and some nice bits of cash, very quick, and not really considering the volatility of the market, the volatility of the currencies, and the hedge that one is trying to make. Whatever you look at it, in whichever currency you look at it, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever you want, and any new DAO and all these other coins that are coming out of the woodwork in someone's dorm room. So I think we have a massive problem, which is we're not really spending enough time educating the market. And we saw this in fintech. And this is not rocket science either, by the way. And you can look at it in the buy now, pay later market as a corollary and see how crap that's been in terms of how we're looking at consumer protection. And so now there's this massive effort by all of the BNPLs to kind of go talk to the FCA, to the EU, to regulators all across the world to talk about consumer protection. They are about 20 months ahead of crypto. And I think as an industry, we better get our skates on, because if we're not going to protect the consumer and educate them and talk to them about what it is, we're just going to go through this rabbit hole of very similar instances like the Chinese government today of banning it. You have almost extreme examples, like some of the Nordic and Nordic countries are looking at minting their own digital currency, and then you've got China going, this is delightful, but no. So unless we all get on the same page as an industry, we're really, really never going to have mass adoption as much as we have and as much as we need to make this a fundamental currency. The volatility of stablecoins is as impervious and as vulnerable. I think there was the other day, I think it was either Venezuela or another Latin American country that was going to use one of the cryptos as official currency. El Salvador. So that's rubbish, because that's not going to help at all in the grand scheme of things. This is Argentina in the peso of the 90s. Like, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. So I think as an industry, we need to take a lot of more responsibility of figuring out what do we want to do, how do we want to get there, and how do we going to educate the consumer. And then you need to drag along the regulators with you. So a lot of the work we did at Maker, for example, was we spent a lot of time on policy and advocacy and educating regulators, whether in Europe, whether in the States, and whether in Asia. We spent a lot of time doing that. And that was one of the reasons I joined the board, because that's my background. And so we spend a lot of time talking to lawmakers and policymakers about what does this actually mean? How are we going to protect the consumer? Why are we pegging it to the dollar? Why is it underwritten by Ethereum and smart contracts? And therefore, how does the mechanics behind the scenes work? And that is fundamental, because otherwise you're just never going to get it. I mean, you know, Bitcoin is what, $36,000 today or something ridiculous? I mean, that's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. So how are you going to get a currency that everybody can mint, but don't have 36 grand to buy it? That just makes no sense. And so I think, to your question, I'm sorry, it's a very long-winded one, but I think if we don't pull everybody on the same page and get them together, regulator, policymaker, designer, market maker, community, we're just not going to have mass adoption as much as we want.
Any other questions?
Hi, Shefali. It's Akansha from UKTN, the editor-in-chief. So I have a question for you regarding the consumers. Do you think the consumers really trust crypto as a technology? And are they ready right now to adopt it? And if not, then how is that going to happen at a mass level?
Okay, let me use you folks as a proxy of the consumer. How many of you know what Ledger is?
I will not reply.
Yeah, that's not comforting. So Ledger is, okay, how many of you have Ledger accounts? Obviously less than what nobody on this panel? That's also worrying. Okay. Yeah. Okay, one person. Thank God, Sam. So Ledger is a wallet, and it is a entity it's a French startup that's very cool, but it produces hardware that means that you can hold your cryptocurrency offline. Now, I'm hoping you understood what I said, because when it was explained to me, I didn't understand it. But what it effectively means is you've got a piece of device, it's basically a hardware piece of device, that sits cold and offline, that holds your cryptocurrency as a custodian, which therefore means if you get hacked online, your cryptocurrency is fine. Now, it's kind of worrying that on a crypto conference, no one knows what that is. So I would strongly Google it very quickly and get your crypto into a ledger. But it is important because, to your question about the consumer, this audience, to use a buzzword that I've heard this evening, is crypto native. And you don't know what that is. And that's worrying. So I then go outside of level 39 and I say to the person on the tube, hey, how's your crypto doing? They have no effing idea Okay, so I think to your point, most consumers, I think, like the attraction of it. I think they like the idea of it. I think they definitely like the money-making capability of it. But I think most of us don't really understand it and don't know how to trade it, don't know how to store it, don't know what it means, don't know how it's pegged, don't know how to use it for other things like lending and payments and all those other things you were describing. Don't know how to buy NFTs with it. I mean, NFTs are really cool, but I actually would prefer a Monet, on my wall. I mean, it's nice to have Digitisation. It's lovely. I mean, I own a few of them. But if I could have like a Monet on my wall, I would much prefer that than, the digitized of Claude, right? So I think it's also different markets, different horses for courses. But I think to your question, I don't think consumers understand it. I don't think we really have mass adoption because of that. And I think most people like the idea of it, and therefore we talk about it and we tweet about it, but I don't think we really fundamentally understand the complexities of what owning crypto assets mean, trading in it means, and using it for one's life and one's professional service.
Any other questions? No, well, I think that concludes it then. So thank you so much to everyone that's listening in on the live stream and for attending in person. Just a few thank yous. Thank you to UKTN, our media partner, and thank you to Level 39 for letting us host in this incredible venue. Just a reminder, the initiative, the Women in Crypto initiative, which is why we're all here, and also the Power List that has now opened, to please go and nominate somebody for the Power List. And finally, thank you to our wonderful panelists for taking the time out of your Friday to educate everybody here. And thanks so much for joining us, and hope you have a good evening.
That's by the seat of his pants.
I guess when I see something, I go right after it.